Good day, and welcome to another mind-blowing episode of Filmatic. Today we sit down with a distinguished South African filmmaker who has over 3 decades of experience in television and film industry. What does it take to be a great documentary filmmaker?
I think it takes patience and to listen, but it's also the content that can dictate it. So I guess I've always had the eye for the visual elements of telling a story.
His dedication to storytelling not only captivates audiences, but also inspires change through film. Indians Can't Fly. How did you find that story and then beyond some, this is the story I'm going to tell?
I think in 2012, the SABC put out a call. They were looking for stories on unsung heroes. It's no joke when someone is detained, tortured, and then thrown out of the 10th floor to cover up the fact that they killed him. His family was still looking for answers 3 decades later. So it is a very powerful story to tell.
Please join me in welcoming the living legend himself, Enver Michael.
Thanks for having me.
Oh man, it's great to have you here.
Yes.
I know, let's get into it. Let's get this party started.
I'm an African. Everybody's an African. Feels good, right? Feels good. Feels good. Feels good. It feels good every day when every African turns and shines my way. All my brothers from Pathade, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. It feels good every day when every African turns and shines my way. All my brothers from Pathade, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. I'm from the continent of refugees and rebels, where minds are richer than all rubies and marbles. Life at its best, view it from all angles. No longer do we wear shackles but life's bangles. AIDS increases, the poverty's indelible, where flowers blossom every day in hard grovel. Traditional acts just brings out the marvel in every African's heart filled with sorrow. Wait for tomorrow but the road remains narrow. African minds sharp like bow and arrow. We're aiming for higher places, man, I tell you. Communication through rhythms until I see you.
Good day, and welcome to another mind-blowing episode of Filmatic. Today we sit down with a distinguished South African filmmaker who has over 3 decades of experience in television and film industry. His name is Enver Samuels. His journey began in various countries including South Africa, England, Ghana, and Zambia, enriching his perspective on storytelling. Enver honed his craft through prestigious studies in film media and across the globe, from Australia, England, and Germany. He has collaborated with notable organizations like the Nelson Mandela Foundation and the African Union, producing impactful content that resonates with social issues. Enver's acclaimed documentaries, including Indians Can't Fly and Murder in Paris, have earned him multiple South African film and television awards and international accolades, with screenings at over 50 international film festivals, and has worked on international shows like Survivor. His dedication to storytelling not only captivates audiences, but also inspires change through film. Now, please join me in welcoming the living legend himself, Enver Samuels.
Hi, thank you.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me.
Oh man, it's great to have you here.
Yes.
Oh. I know, let's get into it. Let's
Yes.
get this party started. Enver, how you doing?
Yes, fine, can't complain. Nice to see your spot.
Thank
finally.
you. It's nice to have you here, man.
Thanks. Thanks for what you're doing for the industry.
Yeah, I hope it resonates and it gets to a lot of young people, more especially. They could use with 3 decades of experience themselves. Hey, I've asked you for footage for my stock footage library, and you said you've got footage dating back to the 90s.
Yes.
Of what? How long have you been shooting? What have you been shooting for all of these years?
So it's a lot of footage and a lot of genres because, I haven't really focused on one particular type of format in television. I've done everything. So my archive footage encompasses a lot of different types of shows, from magazine shows to reality shows to talk shows, but generally documentaries and collecting that footage. As you know, when you edit, there's a lot of footage that doesn't get used, and it's kind of just gathering dust. But it really encompasses 3 decades So, you know, it's footage that kind of shows one's career if you look at it,
Yeah.
and how it has kind of had this upward curve.
You've traveled a lot, just from the research I did, quite a couple of countries, even just to learn filmmaking. How did you get into that, especially the traveling part, and learning in different countries?
Basically, essentially, I was lucky or fortunate. You know, I applied to these institutions and got accepted. You know, so the big one was the almost 2 years in Australia, where I did my degree in film and media. But you know, it was successful applications where I got scholarships to study. You know, because it's quite expensive to do that by yourself. And then I've been fortunate to work on shows, particular travel shows, which has taken me all over Africa and all over the world.
Like Survivor?
Well, no. Well, I mean, there's one reality show called Studio 53
Okay.
for Mnet,
Yeah.
that I worked on for 7 or 8 years. Wow. So I literally lived out of a suitcase for that duration because I had 3 passports. Because while I was traveling, the other passport was being, you know, the application for the visa was being done. So that type of thing. Had extra thick passport, in fact, because of all the amount of stamps. So that travel show broadened my horizons for the continent, because the aim, that's why it was called Studio 53, was for Mnet to show its presence across the continent.
Okay.
And and we did positive stories. They were all positive stories, nothing negative. And, you know, it was a blessing to see our continent and the beautiful stories and people that exist there. Shows like Studio 53 when I kind of changed focus a bit and started to do a lot of reality work. But obviously that also took me to countries as exotic as Samoa, the Philippines, Malaysia. But when you work on the reality shows, they're not yours. You're working for a company.
I hear you.
Yeah, yeah.
So of all the disciplines, I mean, there's directing, there's editing, there's camera. Why did you decide on directing? That's your home, basically, from my understanding. How did you make that your home? I mean, why did you make that your home?
I mean, it's basically the thing I started with.
Yeah.
You know, like when I got back from Australia, I was literally thrown into the deep end as a producer, as a training producer director, and it was either sink or swim, and I decided to swim, even though I can't swim. But you know, the Australian experience gave me the capacity to come and work straight away in the industry, and I started off as a director, and I knew that was what I wanted to focus on, because I like to tell stories. You know, my kind of background was more like photography, but I mean, photography is taking pictures that in film and TV, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're just putting all those pictures together that make movement. So I guess I've always had the eye for the visual elements of telling a story. Yeah.
Man, that's incredible. You've made some, in fact, before I get to the documentaries that you've made, it seems like you make documentaries with a big purpose, always for a reason. Where does that come from? Is it your upbringing, or why do your stories have such depth? Let me use that word.
Yes. So, as I said, I think my career kind of launched in '94. And that's 3 decades. So I went through this intense period of just churning out productions one after the other, working on productions. And around about 2014, so that's many years later, I told the documentary on Ahmed Timol that was called Indians Can't Fly.
Yes.
Because that's the name. He was thrown out of the 10th floor of John Foster Police Station in the bad days of apartheid, and when that film was complete
Yeah.
and when it was broadcast,
Yeah.
I had such a different experience. It was almost visceral experience of watching it and seeing the impact that it had. You know, as opposed to the light entertainment stuff that I was churning out, never had that impact on me. Like when it was shown on TV, I would watch it. You could call me. We could have a conversation. It's playing in the background, type of thing. Or I could be reading the newspaper and looking up and watching it.
Yeah.
You know, like it didn't have an impact, but making this documentary that kind of changed my focus in what I want to do, you know, and seeing how it resonated with people, and the potential for it to change things and do things, you know, and make awareness and that type of thing, convinced me that okay, look, the past experience was great.
Yeah.
You know, because I do use some of those things in what I learned in my documentaries.
Yeah.
You know, so, but they didn't have the power to move me, to fulfill my heart. Now that I'm concentrating on documentaries, I feel very content.
Okay.
In what I'm doing.
Does it not take? How much does it take from you though? The subject matters are quite heavy. A man pushed from the 10th floor, which happened a lot during those days. Yes. Even some of our greatest heroes, sadly. Does it not take a lot from you, and you still put it in?
Yes. So it takes a lot. I mean, it's taken a lot. From me making the decision to shift from my commercial type of work to do this work, you know, like when they say documentary doesn't pay, like literally
documentaries don't pay.
Doesn't really pay. No. It's a labor of love.
Is it?
It's a passion.
Really?
So because you take on the responsibility of portraying something from a period where people suffered, people are still living through that anguish, even though it's 3 decades or 4 decades later. You know, when I deal with the families, the experience of the trauma that they experience is still visibly there. You engage with them, and after 2 minutes of questions, they break down and cry. So that what I'm trying to say is that I feel the need to tell those stories properly, and if I have to invest in extra things that are in the budget that maybe was supposed to be my salary or whatever, then I put it into that telling of that documentary because I don't want to disappoint the families, you know.
I hear you.
That type of thing, yeah.
Indians Can't Fly. How did you? Very interesting title, by the way. How did you find that story and then beyond some? This is the story I'm going to tell.
So that's interesting because that story was flighted in 2014. I think in 2012, the SABC put out a call for, they called it Unsung Heroes. They were looking for stories on unsung heroes. It triggered my mind that in 1996, I'd cut out an article from a magazine on Ahmad Timur. And it was gathering dust somewhere in my study. And I said, okay, unsung heroes. I remember this story. That's why I cut it out. And I'm lucky I found it. And I put it into a proposal. And it was accepted by SABC. But the biggest challenge for me was that, you know, like, and why I wanted to tell that story was I knew Nelson Mandela, like the name. I knew Oliver Tambo. I knew Walter Sisulu, the names, you know, Steve Biko, you know those names. Yeah. But I didn't know the name Ahmad Timur, you know. So that's why I thought, okay, unsung hero. Let's make him someone visible now because he's been covered up almost.
I see.
And that's why I knew it was a story to tell. You know, the fact that his family was still looking for answers 3 decades later. So it is a very powerful story to tell. And I mean, you know, it's no joke when someone is detained, tortured, and then thrown out of the 10th floor to cover up the fact that they'd killed him.
Yes, that is so hectic. And then your other docu, Murder in Paris.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Yeah.
And how did you bring that together?
Okay. So there was Indians Can't Fly, then there was Someone to Blame.
Okay.
And Someone to Blame was a follow-up on Indians Can't Fly.
Okay.
Because Indians Can't Fly, it kind of put the name of Amatimo back up in the, like in the media and that type of thing. And so in 2017, they had an inquest into his death, which was now looking at why and how he was killed. And in that inquest, which was a historic inquest, and the first time that they changed the inquest verdict from, because the apartheid police said he committed suicide. So now this inquest said he was murdered.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a big thing for the family that we knew that he never committed suicide, and now it's proved that he didn't commit suicide. So I knew that was a natural follow-up because I went and covered the court case for like 3 months, and with that footage from the court interspersed with interviews with the family, it's quite dramatic. And I think when I was at a festival in Switzerland, a documentary festival, with the documentary, I met a member of Dulcie September's family who said, but if you've done this, why can't you do this on Dulcie September? And again, I didn't really know who Dulcie September was.
Okay.
And he said, go to Cape Town when you get back, speak to her family that are still there, and see if it can happen. And I spoke to them, and they believed in me. And because that's the important thing, getting the families to believe in you, that you can tell the story in the correct way.
True.
And in 2018, I started shooting Murder in Paris. Just to give you an example, I was 3 weeks into a contract on My Kitchen Rules. The 5-month contract, right? Freelancer. And I came to the realization that I needed to be in Paris at a certain date because they were celebrating the 30th anniversary of assassination. And I tore up my three-week-old contract to take a cameraman and a sound guy to Paris and myself with no money to go and shoot for 1 week. I took the money out for my home loan.
No.
Yes. But if you look at the trajectory of that documentary and what it's done, and the awards it's won, and festivals it's been to all over the world. But for me, more importantly, like when the family members watched, they said, "Thank you for bringing my aunt alive." She was assassinated in the heart of Paris in 1988, shot 5 times in the face. So for them to see their aunt being honored, and for it to start bubbling with getting this case opened, which is happening now, it has been the reward, more than the awards and things like that.
I hear you.
So what I've done is focus on documentaries that have an impact, and can actually live beyond the broadcast date. Yesterday I was in El Dorado Park at a screening for Murder in Paris, 4 years after it was broadcast.
If you can't get the shot on set, you can get it at Match Show Library. We have the best in stock footage and archive. Just go to www.matchshowlibrary.com. Wow. How long does it usually take? Docu's, I've noticed, they take time. So from your experience, what kind of time are you looking at when you're making a documentary?
It's really hard to put a date on a documentary. But to give you an example, Murder in Paris, we started shooting in 2018. And on Human Rights Day in 2021, it was broadcast.
Wow.
So 2018, 2019, 2020. So about 3 or 4 years. But there's another documentary that was made recently, Mother City, about Cape Town, the housing problem in Cape Town. And the director told me it took 7 years. So I know of documentaries from overseas that have taken more than like 10 years, that type of thing. So it's all about patience, but it's also the content that can dictate it because my TRC series I've completed recently for SABC. I was shooting those in about a month or two.
Okay.
For a 1 hour docu.
Okay.
But solid, consistent. not like, you know, I think the best documentaries are when you shoot a little bit, you go away, you come back, you go away, you come back. That's the best. But like when you're doing an SABC documentary, the budget doesn't allow that, you know, like, so we just shot back to back, basically. Yeah.
It doesn't affect the product or the picture when you do it like that?
No, I don't think so, because I think what it doesn't show is growth, because you're shooting it over a quick period, you know, like, so you don't see the growth of the person, but in terms of you can still get the impact of or the emotion. You can still get that emotion.
I see.
Yeah.
Are there projects that you turn down where you feel like, nah, this is not for me?
Yeah. Well, in the 2 years of making the series for SABC is called Truth Be Told.
Okay.
To look at 6 cases from the TRC and how the families, so that's the 6 people were killed, and they had a child.
Yeah.
And so that child, when they were killed, was between 3 months old and 5 years old.
Great.
Today they're adults, between 30 and 40 years old. They are the narrators of that story. So they tell you the story about their mum and their father.
Great.
But what that allows is for someone younger to tell the story of someone older, but engages in the past, present, and future through the eyes of the child. You know, but again, you see the trauma right there, right in front of you, living. You know, like, for example, you won't believe this. One of them is on Bheki Mlangeni,
Okay.
human rights lawyer who was killed with a booby-trapped Walkmans. I don't know if you guys
Like it blew up.
Walkmans. Yeah, like that Walkman's cassette with a
Yeah, I
cassette
remember
in it.
those, and you put the cassette in. Yeah.
So they send that to him in a package, and then he opens it and he puts it on his head and he presses play and it blows his head off.
That's a movie kind of. It sounds like a movie.
And his son is Mandla Malangeni, who's a jazz musician, plays the trumpet.
Yeah.
And Mandla tells the story, and he says, "I use the trumpet to speak to my father." You know, like, so you can imagine these are powerful stories, but like they are raw and they're visceral in terms of sometimes when something triggers the child, the adult now, or the wife, you see how it comes out. Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then that's when I made the decision. Okay, this is what I want to concentrate on, even though it's not making me the money like I used to make, but it's making me richer in here. Yeah.
What does it take to be a great documentary filmmaker?
I think it takes patience and to listen. To the biggest and easiest thing to do is to listen, but many directors don't listen.
Okay.
They just say, okay, time, 2 hours for the interview, and they talk over the person. They don't listen.
And then, you know, there's a general definition of what a director is. From you and your experience, how would you describe what a director is?
Yeah. Well, in my experience is it's more, for me, it's not a technical thing. It's more an interpersonal relationship with the person that you're dealing with, and how you can make them feel at ease. So for me, that's more important. When I choose my crew, I don't choose my crew because they are the best.
I hear you.
Because then you might have an ego.
Tell me about it.
I choose the crew that can with that person that I'm interviewing, they can make them feel at ease.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
So my parents went into voluntary exile, and our journey was from South Africa to Ghana.
Okay.
Then from Ghana to England, and then from England to Zambia. I mean, like different years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where does the film bug hit you when traveling?
Well, I mean, I was young then, so I think it was just maybe that world experience that I used to pick up a camera, like a stills camera.
Yeah.
And I kind of got very passionate in recording the journey, you know, that type of thing. So, so, so I've always had the visual eye to, to see things that the normal person doesn't see. So I think it was just a progression from there.
I see.
Yeah. But I think more as a storyteller, traveling and living in different countries, I think it enriches your, your broader experience. And I think maybe that's kind of, things that triggered me to want to tell stories.
So you went to film school?
Yes, the film school was in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What was it called? What was it like there?
It was really good. It was from 1990 to 93.
Okay.
So it was nice to be out of the country, for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And like Australia has an amazing, a film and television setup, for a small country. So they were very advanced in terms of their teaching, their equipment. And that's why when I came back, I was able to be thrown straight away into the deep end. I didn't start at the bottom. I started, what's that song?
I started from the bottom, now we're here. That's so interesting. And then just documentary filmmaking and where it's going. Where do you see it going? I've heard different comments. I'm wondering what you think about it.
So it's interesting because, I've been fortunate enough to go to documentary festivals all over the world. And when you're at a festival like in Canada, in Toronto, Amsterdam, in Holland, there are literally queues that are snaking out of the cinema into the road. People flock to watch documentary. And unfortunately, we don't have that in South Africa. And I think even in film, we don't have that. There's only that rare one that kind of hits the mark. So we need to cultivate a documentary audience. But I see, because I've been around for 3 decades, I see that there is progression. And if you make documentaries that have a resonance in terms of like I feel now that I've concentrated on documentaries that have an impact, there is an audience for it. So when the ARs, the audience ratings came back from SABC3 for Mud in Paris, they told me that they hadn't had that high ARs for a documentary in a decade. So yeah, so if you make a documentary that resonates with the viewer, the public, and there have been a few of them, in the past couple of years, where they're able to capture the audience's imagination in terms of, the content and the power of the story.
As a director, do you feel that you must make something for people, or you must make something that's going to make you happy, and then the people are either going to like it or not?
I guess it can be a mixture of both, but deep down, when I identify a story, it's because that story is speaking back to me. It's not what the audience is saying. It's because there's something that it triggers within me that I know that's the story I want to tell. Because I come across many stories, but I don't click with them. There's no, I don't know what it is, but because it sounds corny that like the story speaks back to me.
It doesn't sound corny, but I hear you.
But that's what happens. I choose those ones, like the 6th for my TRC series, TRC's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. There were 30,000 cases that came up to the TRC. I chose 6.
30,000?
Yes.
How did you choose those specific 6? Besides it speaking to you, what is it that it spoke to you about?
So obviously I didn't go through 30,000, but I'm giving you an example. So I went through a couple of hundred. And I chose 6. And again, those 6 spoke to me. But I saw within those 6, I saw elements of storytelling. Like Mandla and his father, Beki Sizwe Manangeni, and the trumpet. I knew immediately that's the story that needs to be told, because it's going to be a visual story.
Yes.
I mean, he's the Standard Bank Jazz Artist of the Year. He plays in Carnegie Hall in the States. He's a brilliant jazz musician. So that the image of the trumpet, we set it in a studio, black background, mood lighting. He's playing the trumpet. It's beautiful, you know.
It's incredible.
You know, so it's the elements, those elements that I'm able to pick up in those stories that kind of spoke to me. Like example, another one. So that one's called Pathways to Light because he's finding the light. He's coming out from the dark.
Nice.
Another one is called Breastfeeding Warrior, and that's the story about Pila, Portia, and Dwandwe, who was carrying a 3-month-old baby when she was tortured, detained, and killed in KZN. And that son is the one, Tabang, who tells the story. So he calls his mother the Breastfeeding Warrior. So those are the titles. So the series is being launched on SABC 2 on the 3rd of November. So that every Sunday on SABC 2 at 9:30 p.m. So audience, please watch. You know, we can only cultivate an audience of watching our documentaries is by people watching.
True.
And if people watch, then the SABC say there is a need for that. And then that's how we get work.
So you feel there's still a bright future for documentary filmmakers?
Yes, there is. If you've got the passion to tell your story, and if you want to sacrifice to tell that story, there is a bright future for you.
So Enver, documentaries, you know how traditional films will have structure, beginning, middle, end, will have a pace and a beat. Do documentaries also stick to that kind of formula as well?
Yes, definitely. You know, otherwise, you know, you could end up with quite a sort of static documentary. Okay. So, I mean, things like the inciting incident, you know, and it's the same thing, 3-act structure. You can incorporate that all into a documentary because that's what makes it watchable. If you ignore those tools and go with the standard way, then it becomes quite a sort of static documentary. Your documentary mustn't flow like that. It must flow with peaks and ups and downs, you know. So incorporate the same principles of filmmaking and fiction into your documentary. So like, I think why Murder in Paris resonates so much, and I had an audience yesterday in El Dorado Park of young youth that have just left school. They were literally sitting like this and watching, and they said at the end, it's not like the normal documentaries we watch. It's more like a thriller, you know. So try to keep that. Those elements in documentary filmmaking, and then you can get your audience to sit and watch and not doze off.
Wow. And then intellectual property. You know, it's a question I like asking because I'm dealing on the show. Everyone who comes here has that challenge.
Yes.
And thoughts. What are your challenges, thoughts, whatever, on intellectual property?
Yeah. So what I've done with my documentaries has been the hard way to make them, but I've gone the route of pre-license deals. So if I went to the SABC and they commissioned me, they own my baby. You know, they'll pay me all the money to make it. Yeah. It gets flighted, but they own it, and they don't know what to do with it once they've flighted it. You know, kind of just gathers dust and that type of thing. Whereas I've gone the pre-license route where they give me around about 30% to 40% of the budget. Okay. Which is the carrot at the end of the stick, because
you can choose to do that.
You can choose to do that. Yes, they've got those two. They've got those funding models: commission, pre-license, or already finished license deal. All right. So I go the pre-license. Harder to get the funding because it's not all there in one chunk. But this is the incentive for the other funders to see, okay, this is a serious project. It's got the SABC on board. It's got 40% of the budget. So like the National Film and Video Foundation, Gauteng Film Commission, they see that and they say, okay, this most likely this is going to get finished and made and broadcast. So we're not risking too much. Yeah. So, then the beauty of it is that it's mine I can take it to festivals, I can take it to community screenings, I can bump it up to Showmax, other channels, other VOD, because it's mine,
At Metro, we believe that storytellers change the world, and we would like to give you the right tools to accomplish this mission. For all your gear rental needs, go to www.metro.co.za or send us an email at rentals@metro.co.za.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That makes me think about platforms. What kind of platforms do you think documentary filmmakers should be looking at to get their stuff screened?
Yeah. Well, I mean, SABC is one.
Yep.
Then we have VOD like Showmax and Netflix. But predominantly, Showmax and Netflix are concentrating on true crime.
True crime?
True crime is like, someone got murdered in SA, and it's a story worth telling.
Okay.
Like the lady that's been killing her family for the insurance money.
Oh.
And I think they actually they're onto that already, or it's
Okay.
been on.
So Murder in Paris wouldn't count in that?
No, it's not true crime. It's docu.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So like true crime is kind of more investigative.
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
Yes.
I see. I
Yeah.
see.
Yes.
And then for your projects, how do you go about getting funding?
So funding is the biggest nightmare for an independent producer director, because and people say, okay, you've won all these awards, is it easier now? It's not. It's never been easier. Like every time I do it, it's still patience, waiting, it's rejection, it's okay, yes, it's good, you get happy. But my primary sources of funding have been the National Film and Video Foundation. I guess they see that I'm a person that can deliver, so I've been lucky to get funding from them. Gauteng Film Commission, though they blow hot and cold. And then to give you an example, like the TRC series and Murder in Paris, I got funding from the Nelson Mandela Foundation for Human Rights. So you also tie in your funding request to the content of your documentary.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
And also we got some funding from the UK for Dulcie, for Murder in Paris, because she used to work in the UK for an NGO. We approached them, and they gave some funding. So you tie it into the specific content of what you're trying to make. It's slow, but it comes in the end.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Wow, that is so interesting. So where to from here? What's the future looking like for you?
Well, my wife says to me that, when are you going to do something lighter?
I think
So I think I'm going to try and look for something lighter, because I've
Rom-com.
been in dark spaces for many years now. So I mean, it even goes to like when like psychologists say I need to come see them, So like, yeah,
Really?
because I guess it's having, like, on a serious note, yes, when you're involved in that type of content for a long time, it's bound to have an effect on you. I'm not stone, I have emotions and feelings. So I think I inherit some of what the stories I'm telling, I don't sleep like I used to. And, so yeah. But I think something lighter is called for now.
like a
But
rom-com.
I have to find it.
Do a rom-com, you think?
No, I'd love to do a travel. What do they call travel films? There's a name for it.
Travel films? I don't know.
It's actually a Lani name.
What kind of film is a travel film?
It's like a journey. Like people get into a car and they.
I see. I see. Like a road trip.
Road.
kind of
That's
film.
the word. Road trip
kind of
Yeah.
film. Those are nice.
Yes.
Those are dope. You should actually
Yeah.
do that. Thank you so much for joining us. I really like documentaries are one of those genres. Some people feel like it's dying. I feel like it's actually still growing, and there's just so many documentaries that need to be made. And thank you for just giving us that information and that knowledge and just how to go about it. I hope to see you again, even. Hope we'll see you again soon. I know that you're still busy with some great projects, but thank you for your time. We are greatly, greatly appreciative. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for what you did.
No, thank you.
It feels good every day when every African turns and shines my way. All my brothers from Zaire, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. It feels good every day when every African turns and shines my way. All my brothers from Zaire, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. Oh man, it feels good.
For more amazing content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And please follow us on all our social media pages. Love.